It's 8 o'clock. Were we good? Good morning, everyone. It's Friday, May 30th, 8 o'clock a.m. This is our Deschutes County Legislative Update call on Friday morning. And I may be the only commissioner here. I'm seeing a list of about 16 people at this time. And Jen and I were talking about this yesterday, connecting with Doug Riggs. And as I say, if anybody has any hot topics, make sure to bring them up today. But it may be more just an update of what's going on in the Capitol and the feel of the closure of the session, aiming for the end of the session. So Commissioner Dare may be in Salem today, I kind of heard.
Commissioner Dare won't be joining us. She's traveling right now.
Okay. And then it's I don't know the status for Commissioner Chang at this point. So, and then, yeah, is Doug out there?
I don't see him yet. Corey, he's planning on joining this morning, correct?
Yes, I'm sure he's just having trouble logging on or something.
Okay. I think there was a tiny bit of delay on the promoting of the panelists, so maybe that's just the situation we're in.
Yep, not a problem. As I say, so any other hot topics to just kind of get the feel of what's going on from any other areas, department heads, elected officials?
And I see Doug's joined us now too.
Okay, so yeah, Kevin.
Yeah, I mean, you know, for the two bills I was tracking was that Senate Bill 83 and 85. Senate Bill 85 did pass, so that's good to hear. They kind of took the financial piece out of it, which is probably why it did pass. But you know, it's going to start getting recommendations for incorporating, you know, the fire mitigation program for the state and trying to reduce insurance premiums. So yeah.
Okay, but then 83 is going to be maybe a pawn in the whole big picture, is what it looks like.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
Anybody else?
And Commissioner Chang just joined us as well.
Oh, great. Good morning. Commissioner Chang, any updates or thoughts?
Nope, I'm just waiting to see where the chips land on transportation and wildfire funding.
Yeah, well, yeah, transportation is going to be a big one. Chris Doty, please.
Yeah, just chiming in on that. And Doug will give us an update here when he's fully settled. But I mean, it sounds like there will be a bill early next week. That'll be the thing we all get to talk about. And from here moving forward, again, just want to advocate for an open mind as we kind of digest it and recognize that everyone gets wound up on the ODOT issues. That's what a lot of this discussion will turn to. But the county is, you know, we are 80% funded via the state highway fund. And so as are many counties, much worse off than us. So, you know, it'd be nice to, you know, as it drops, you know, let's focus that advocacy and comments towards, you know, what local governments, especially counties, especially Deschutes County, needs in the way of transportation funding to further its programming.
Great. Well, thank you for that. That's true. You know, cities and counties are going to be real tangible to us, obviously. And yeah, the ODOT discussion will probably take a whole bunch of the air out of the room. I can see that dynamic. Thank you. So Doug, we're just kind of going through, you know, any hot topics by anyone here this morning. So if you're ready to go, looking forward to hearing from you this morning about just the feel and the pace and, you know, your best information about what's going on over there.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Good morning. Doug Riggs here on behalf of the county. It is beginning to feel like the end of the session. Couple things have happened that are procedural that signal that the session is winding down. The most important is that they've declared that sine die is imminent, which gives them the authority to post hearings and work sessions with only an hour of notice. And that's now occurred in both the House and the Senate. And that's a big sign that they just have a few weeks left. So technically we could be in session until June 29th, but I don't think anyone expects them to go that long. My guess is they're 5 to 7 days prior to that is when they actually adjourn. I do expect them to probably come back in the fall, possibly for a special session and possibly for a special session on transportation. Personally, I don't think they're far enough along to agree on a transportation package in the next 3 weeks. It would have to go through, 3 or 4 different committee steps plus floor action. I think that's a tough task. I do think they're getting closer, so they could have something by August or September. I could be wrong in that. Maybe they're further ahead than I know. So that's number one. Number two is the budgets are starting to come out. We're starting to see small agency budgets come out of Ways and Means, and you'll see a few of those this morning at 9:30 when the Ways and Means Committee convenes. Smaller agency budgets and commissions and boards, their budgets are starting to come out. That's a precursor to starting to see, large agencies come up for work session in the next 2 or 3 weeks. We understand that capital construction has been given a number. So that's an amount of lottery bonding and geo bonding that they can spend. I watched the capital construction subcommittee members wander into the co-chair's office about 4 days ago. They came out and I assumed that they had been said, given a number, you have X amount of money to spend. And so on things like Core 3, that's pretty critical. A number of us are being warned not to expect full allocations. So if you ask for 10 million, maybe you'll get 5. You ask for 8, maybe you'll get 4. I think we should be prepared that capital construction requests are going to fall into that category as well. On the Ways and Means front, 536 bills have been referred to Ways and Means. At last count, I think 19 had come out. So with 4 weeks left, they still have 515 bills, 16, 17 bills that they haven't gotten to. There is no possible way that Ways and Means can pass, 100 bills in 2 weeks or 200 bills in 3 weeks. There's just no way. So many of the bills that have gone to Ways and Means, and it's double the number of bills at Ways and Means from the previous session. Many of those bills, which really have been under scrutiny and under development for months or years by policy committees, are likely to die. And I think that's going to be very disappointing to an awful lot of people who've put in a lot of time on bills. And it's really unfair for the policy committees to hold interim hearings and work sessions, to have work groups, to ask people to commit their time, and then just to say, sorry, we're not going to get to it. So I think that's unfortunate, but we'll see.
Well, that's what might happen with the transportation bill. We might not get to it. Isn't that interesting? Yeah.
Could be. Yep. That's exactly right, Commissioner. Yep. One of the big discussions going on right now is how much money should be put into the rainy day fund. The rainy day funds currently include close to $5.2 billion. That's quite a large amount. It is above the minimum that the legislature set as a goal to have in reserve. And the revenue forecast, ironically, if you look at it, is down about $500 million over what they expected in March. So since the ending balance is $544 million, there are an awful lot of people saying, hey, it's raining right now. There are key budget priorities. Let's spend the money that we have. We don't need to touch the kicker. That's $1.6 billion going to go back to the taxpayers. But there's still this $544 million in the co-chair's budget that is set aside for savings to add to that rainy day fund. So that a big debate is going on right now in the building and with the advocates and others about whether or not to hold some of that money back. If they do hold that money back and invest it in programs like youth programs or a child psychiatric residential facility in Central Oregon or other key homeless youth that JBAR-J would benefit from and the region would benefit from, a lot of people would say investing that now saves money rather than not investing it, and people end up in ERs and that costs money. So that's a debate that's going on in the building. We touched on transportation. There are 2 big things that happened on transportation. One was the audit from the outside consultants came back with 9 recommendations. A lot of them were restructuring the way business is done, eliminating steps of the process to cut down on the time it takes for ODOT to move projects ahead, and giving project managers the authority to actually make decisions instead of having to go up the food chain, go to different departments. Like DOJ in Oregon reviews not just whether or not a contract complies with the law, but what are the details of the contract, timelines, provisions for overruns, et cetera, and that adds time. So other states don't have many of the steps that we have in the contracting process that might be streamlined, and you could speed up and lower the cost of transportation projects. Just two more things. One is, as was mentioned a moment ago, Senate Bill 75 is still in limbo. It's being held hostage over the larger wildfire discussions. It shouldn't be in that category. They already have Senate Bill 83 that they can amend. They don't need to hold Senate Bill 75, but for some reason the speaker has decided that she has to hold that bill hostage as well. I'm absolutely positive that something will happen on wildfire, and so I think it'll get through in the end, but it's annoying nonetheless. And then the last thing I'll mention, which is a huge category, a lot of the behavioral health, community corrections, public safety bills and budgets impacts community corrections, aid and assist, which was a draft was released as a 149-page long aid and assist bill. It takes hours just to read it and figure out what's in it. Those bills are all still pending, as well as 3069, which we talked about a couple of weeks ago, to streamline the CJC process. Those are all kind of contingent on how much money does the state have. Can the state pay for the cost cut study on community corrections? Can the state fully fund, the public health needs of the counties? So those are all kind of Ways and Means decisions that are kind of caught up in that whole overall decision about how much money will Ways and Means have to spend. So lots of decisions. It's very typical for the end of session. Things will happen very quickly, and we may not know about them until they're posted. But those are a few of the things happening in the building. I will say that it's kind of interesting to be down there the last couple of days. Except for an hour or two surge where a group comes in, the number of advocates in the building has shrunk to, 20 or 25 on a daily basis, because there aren't a lot of hearings, and I think some of my colleagues have kind of given up and abandoned ship. But I think that's a mistake, because a lot of important things can happen, and things can happen quickly. So we're there every day and trying to track things, and I know I've seen several of the commissioners, several of you've been in the building, and I think that's important. I think we need to stay engaged, keep communicating with our delegation. One last thing I'll say, sorry to talk so much. The letter that the commissioners put out on the priorities, the budget priorities, hand delivered that to members' offices, spoke to a number of the members and staff. They thought that was incredibly helpful to have all the priorities that we've listed for the session in one place on one sheet. They really appreciated that. So it's a good letter, and thanks for getting that out quickly. Thanks to Jen and the staff for shepherding that through the process. And Nick.
Great, thank you very much. Yeah, that's just a set of priorities, because we could have put more on there, but at least it was black and white of some high priority items of Deschutes County. I know I'm just thinking through the process. Association of Oregon Counties is having a kind of a summertime retreat day this next Monday, so the commissioners will be together. But then the next week, next Monday is the AOC meeting, so that could be justification to get down there, just be in the building, smiling and thanking them for their service, and maybe advocating on the last little items that are happening real fast. With that, Commissioner Chang.
Yeah, thanks. Doug, when you were talking about the capital construction bill having a number, is that where the legislature is considering the youth psychiatric facility right now, or is that somewhere else?
Yeah, Commissioner, thanks for the question. Typically, projects like that would be in the capital construction subcommittee and funded with lottery dollars. That would be the normal and expected allocation point. In the past couple sessions, because there has been extra general fund dollars, they sometimes use general fund for those capital construction dollars, as they did with our county courthouse a couple years ago. But with general fund a little more restricted, and the ARPA dollars having largely disappeared, I would expect that that would be the most likely 80-90% possibility for that to occur within the lottery restrictions. The initial lottery allocation was going to be about $550 million. The revised forecast took that down to about $501 or $502 million. So there's been about a 10% reduction in the projection of available lottery bonds. And that's why I think they're telling everybody that, if you asked for 10 million, you'll probably get 5 or 4 or 8, and not everyone will get funded. So stay tuned.
And is that a Ways and Means process to put together that bill, or
Yep.
are there other entities involved? And I mean, if that's a Ways and Means process, is that basically the co-chairs, or is there, are some of the subcommittee members and all the broader Ways and Means committee involved in that?
Well, the Ways and Means process has always been a bit opaque, and it varies from session to session. I believe that this session, the new Senate co-chair in particular, Senator Lieber, has really made a big effort to engage the subcommittee chairs and also the policy committee chairs. And that had been something that had kind of evaporated over the last 4 or 5 biennia. It was really a process that I think was largely determined by the Speaker, the Senate President, and the Ways and Means co-chairs. I think that's changed a little bit. It really does seem like they are more thoroughly engaging other members. For instance, we have 2 Central Oregon legislators who were subcommittee co-chairs on the Ways and Means, Senator Broadman on public safety, which is really good for our programs, and then Representative Levy as the co-chair of the Natural Resources Subcommittee. So they are being consulted. They've asked me questions. I've had discussions with them about things that they've been asked about. At the end of the day, every budget allocation must be approved by the full co-chairs and probably by the Speaker and the Senate President as well. But I do think that there are more cooks in the kitchen this session.
Thank you.
Well, so this may be a shorter meeting today. Does anybody else have any kind of high priority items, topics? So Holly Harris, thank you.
Well, just along that note of the child psych facility, sorry, I'm under the weather. There is a lot of advocacy happening from Senator Broadman on this issue. In fact, there's 2 pediatricians that just signed the letter in support that was sent to the from St. Charles Hospital in support of this effort, and he's working on a larger support letter from the rest of the Central Oregon delegation. So he's called me a couple times on this and really advocating hard for the child psych facility for our region. So just wanted to share that.
Thank you. Yep. Anyone else? So.
Well, we didn't talk about the bigger spirals of the wildfire discussion, and if Senate Bill 75 is in limbo, I think in part it's in limbo because it's being used as a bargaining chip to get to a real meaningful wildfire funding package. But I think it's very interesting that the governor has signaled an openness to the idea of holding back a portion of the kicker for this year to establish a wildfire funding trust fund that could generate $50 million a year just from interest and dividends from those dollars held back one time from the kicker. I've even been hearing that people rumbling about bringing back the idea of cap and trade in order to be able to fund wildfire and transportation. I think that's a pretty radical move. The idea of going after the kicker is a pretty even if it's just once, is a pretty radical move. And in my mind, it signals how intransigent some people are being about funding some of these desperately needed investments in in the state of Oregon and in our region. Both of these things, transportation and wildfire, are extremely high priority areas where we need of service, where we need adequate funding. And I just wish that all the legislators were serious about finding long-term sustainable funding solutions for these needs so that we could get something done, and we didn't have to go nuclear basically with some of these proposals.
So Doug, can you help with, so the kicker, that needs to be the 2/3 majority? That would be bipartisan if that really got legs?
Yeah, I went back and I looked again, because there are two big funding pots that, that can be tapped. One is the kicker and the other is the rainy day fund. And it's interesting because, one has a 3/5 requirement and one has a higher 2/3 requirement to get out. The kicker is 2/3, so you must have a 2/3 vote of the legislature. So 2/3 of 30 and 2/3 of 60. And then the rainy day fund is 3/5, which is simple majority. This is kind of interesting because the House does not have a 3/5 majority right now. The Senate actually did not have a 3/5 majority until last week because Senator Aaron Woods had passed away in early April. And so they went April and most of May without a 3/5 majority in the Senate, but they had a 3/5 majority in the House. They replaced Senator Woods with State Representative Courtney Neron-Mislin from Tualatin. And so now the Senate is back to the 2/3 or the 3/5 majority, but the House lost their 3/5 majority. And they're actually down, they're down 2 votes right now because Representative Walwyn is battling cancer and is unable to come into the building. So they may have a replacement for former Representative Neron, who's now Senator Neron, on the 6th of June when the county commissioners from Washington, Clackamas, and Yamhill County, actually Yamhill has 0.1% of the population, so they get 0.1% of the vote.
Well, it brings them to the table, though.
Yeah, it does. And they can ask the same amount of questions that the other counties ask. So that's on June 6th, and it's expected that there will be one representative elected, but you're still down Representative Walwyn, who I suppose could come in for a vote. But it is a real challenge. It's a math number. And I think that is, I think this plays into the whole end of session discussion, these two things that, Commissioner Chang has raised on the kicker and then also the 3/5. And remember, for transportation, you will need 3/5. And and so far, the only stated Republican votes for the transportation package, stated Republican votes, are in the Senate, although you do have 2 Republican representatives in the House discussing that. And I did want to hit on something that Commissioner Chang said, which is, I should have mentioned this earlier. Sorry, I didn't. Cap and trade is back. As you recall, after the walkout killed cap and trade, and the court said, hey, DEQ did not follow the legal process on cap and trade. The administration went back to the drawing board, went through the process as outlined by the courts, and adopted another procedure that wasn't cap and trade, that business likes less than cap and trade. So cap and trade, as negative a connotation as you had from the last time around, is actually preferred by many of the businesses being impacted by the current DEQ regulations on environmental emissions. And that's why some of the Republicans, including Senator Starr, said, hey, let's use cap and trade to raise money for transportation. That would be a less objectionable alternative to emissions regulation than Because all that money from the cap and trade could go back into transportation, could go back into clean trucks, go back into roads, which businesses would appreciate versus the current regulatory system where all the fees are fines that go to state agencies and are used by nonprofits for nonprofit projects. So anyway, that it's lots of intrigue around this whole issue.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, it's just good to take a few moments and kind of think through where we're at here. Anybody else today? Yes, seeing none, as I say, we're only 25 minutes in, but we don't need to take it any farther. And this was our discussion yesterday. Let's just have a little update, compare notes. I think Commissioner Dare may be in Salem this morning, just making her rounds. She's very influential when she's in person, so good for her. With that, anything else? Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.